back and forth to Texas from the time I was born. I moved back and forth between Texas and Europe and all over. But I was in Texas probably about 4 years. Some of that was like middle school or junior high, as some people will say, up until the beginning of high school. And then I moved back to Germany. And then I wanted to finish in high school over in Germany before I went back to the United States to start college. So
Okay.
it was definitely back and forth. I would say my mother's from New York and my father's from Washington D.C. So we're an East Coast kind of family, but my roots were in Texas because many of my friends in the time that I spent in Texas, I kind of developed a love and respect for it because obviously I was born there and I lived there for some time. And then also the fact that I spent a lot of time there doing my music business days, with Master P as well as with King George and Little Troy. So I got a chance to spend a lot of time in Texas and do some great things there. So I consider that probably more of my third home after California and Germany. I would probably say Texas would be a third or fourth home. Also, I consider Washington somewhat of a home of mine as well.
Okay.
State that is.
So a man of the world, we definitely know that. And so speaking about being out in Europe and especially Germany, when you was out there at that time studying, working, was you listening to music? What music was you listening to? Was you listening back to a lot of the stuff from the States?
I was listening to a lot of stuff in the States. I was a huge fan of a group called UTFO. They did the Roxanne record, and Doc Ice, Educated Rapper, Kango Kid. I was a huge fan of those guys. I was a fan of the Fat Boys. Huge fan of them. Fan of Run-D.M.C and Houdini. A lot of those groups in the '80s, I was in love with. I think I did listen to some EDM music for my time being in Germany, so a little bit of that, but mainly I was into hip hop like crazy. 1989, a friend of mine who I live with in the area with Germany named Lamont Jack turned me on to gangster rap because he turned me on to N.W.A and he turned me on to Ice Cube. And that's when I started really kind of changing my mindset of all kinds of music, not only just the East Coast sound, but also some of that West Coast sound and some of that gritty sound and gangster rap itself. And that's what I was always excited about, the different genres within rap music and within hip hop, because sometimes people they think there's hip hop is just one thing, but no, there's different type of genres within the genre itself. And I fell in love with that West Coast sound and the organ sound and the way the beats were put together. So huge fan of all of hip hop, but definitely got once NWA came out, I became a real fan of that vision of talking about what's going on in the streets and the storytelling aspect of hip hop.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I could definitely attest to what you're saying about just the different elements that hip hop's been known to be able to include. Whereas some people think of hip hop as just a standalone genre itself, but it being able to take music from whether it's rock, blues, jazz, with vocals, without the vocals, however which way it goes, and that's something that definitely drew me to the music and to the culture and stuff like that as well myself. So it's great to hear somebody like yourself speak of it because there's a lot of people in the business that work in the business, but they may not necessarily have that same feeling for music. So it's good to hear that you like a musical connoisseur in your own right. So sort of going from that, was this a point when you heard like that sort of stuff? Did you know you wanted to work within the music business then, or was this something that you heard it and you thought, I want to be a part of this, this what's going on, or was you already making strides in that sort of direction?
Well, I was always making music, so I will tell you, when I first heard people ask me this question, when did you really fall in love with hip hop? And I would say when I heard "Suckin' MCs" by Run-D.M.C, I was in New York City for a summer. My grandmother lived there, and I stayed there for the whole summer. And I heard "Suckin' MCs" probably every 5 minutes on every radio station, on every box that I could. Anything that had music, I was listening to "Suck MCs." And when I heard Run talk through that record and the way that beat was going, and he was talking about Larry Lair, and I was like, man, I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to I didn't care if I was dancing or rapping. I just wanted to be a part of it, and I totally fell in love with it. So by the time I was older, like my high school years in Germany, I was always rapping and making beats and writing songs. And I had a buddy of mine early on in my time, with the earlier years in high school, named Randy Fusco, who was probably the best beatboxer I've ever heard. So
Okay.
we would do radio commercials, and we would perform, and it didn't matter if we were on the bus to a football game or a basketball game, or we were just hanging out. We were always making music, and he was beatboxing and I was rapping, and we were doing these commercials. So it was always cool. And then as I moved to different places in Germany, when I finished my high school career at Würzburg, I hooked up with a friend of mine named Soul Elements, who's still in Germany and performing, and he's got a really, really good name and doing some things. And I used to continue to make beats and rap and make music. So I was determined to be in the music business, the entertainment business, but mainly I wanted to be in hip hop. And ultimately, I wanted to be a rapper and a producer. And
Okay.
it wasn't until later on in my career when I was trying to really focus on being a rapper, being in front of the mic or in front of this on stage, is when I realized from a compensation standpoint, the business executive and the producer has an opportunity to make more income than the rappers. So when I was, on the radio up in Spokane, Washington, at KGU with my man Grand Mixer GMS, I was always wanting to be rapping, and he was making music, and I was making music, and I was rapping, and we had a group, and we were doing all these things. It happened to be when I started to talk to these record executives, and I realized that the rappers were only getting 6 to 8 to 12% on the record. And I said, well, man, why do I want to be the rapper? I want to be the guy who runs the record label or owns the record label, who makes the bigger percentage. So that's when I went from the transition of wanting to be an artist into being a producer and being a business
And a
executive.
businessman in your own right. Yeah, definitely. And, you know,
You watching About That TV, your one-stop shop for the hottest urban edutainment from the UK to the US. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel and also join the membership for exclusive content. Yeah, so once again, be sure to tap in with the real. Drop your comments, let us know your thoughts, and do check us out on our official website, aboutthatonline.com. Peace.